Hey everybody, welcome to the Ass Podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. We took a little break, but we're back now. We're back in the ass. In case you've never watched this podcast before, what we do here is we talk to animation industry professionals. We pretty much hear their story, the mountains that they had to climb, and the hurdles that they had to jump in order to get to where they are now. Thus the success story. That's what ASS stands for, if I didn't say it already. Today in the ass, it's Regis Camargo, right over here.
Hello.
Reggie is a director, an animator, a storyboard artist, a concept artist, and we're going to find all about his ass animation success story in 2 seconds. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're in the ass right now. We're talking to Regis Camargo right over here, storyboard artist, director, animator, concept artist. I said it before, I'll say it again. He's an awesome guy. We're going to talk to him. We're going to find out about him. I'm going to start off the podcast. Well, before I do that, obviously, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Anthony. I'm here with my co-hosts, of course, Sabrina and Brian, as usual.
Hello.
And we're going to find out all about Reggie right now. I'm going to start off the podcast like we usually do, Reggie. We always start off by asking what got you started in the animation industry. What drew you to animation?
I think it's tough to see where it starts, because I think I've always watched cartoons ever since I was 2. I think that's so I think the inception was always there. As to now deciding to make a career out of it. That really became a thing when I was in high school. I think it was about 17 and I was actually, prior to that, I was doing a lot of music related things. And I decided to make it was kind of a drastic decision. I basically, right before my senior year, I said, okay, I'm just going to stop all music and I'm just going to do this. I'm going to get into animation. So I started taking art classes. Oh, cool.
Wow. Senior year of high school, you're talking.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which was late. Yeah, I guess, compared to other people. And
sure.
I think that's always been kind of with me. And definitely through undergrad and in college, I always felt like I had to catch up to my colleagues.
Well, that kind of lights a fire under your butt in a way, right?
Do you still do music stuff too?
I used to, but my brother does. So I think we were both doing music a lot. I have an older brother, and cool. So he's a musician, and so that's kind of how we were kind of going about things.
I have a quick one.
Sure.
What were your favorite cartoons when you were a kid?
Good question.
Yeah, so I think I had a very good mix of Looney Tunes and anime. That's why I never had an anime phase per se, because it's always been there. I never got in or out of it, So I think Grandizer was definitely the big
Grandizer,
robot show. I think that's because I shouldn't have watched it. I think
How old were you when you were watching it?
Probably 2 or 3. It was so violent. that's
nice, man.
Oh my god.
But that's
it definitely had an influence.
Oh yeah, but I think Oh, and this was around a time when I lived in France for a while, for a year or so. And at the time, and I think this happened in Latin America too, but all over Europe too, especially 70s and early 80s, co-productions were huge between Japan and Europe, and so it was bound to happen. They were
didn't get a lot of those. If you got any, it would have been through Canada.
Right. Or Robotech, which was the big thing, but yeah.
But that was also Canadian.
And it was also localized, yeah. But I think what happened in Europe and Latin America, especially in Brazil, because that's my experience, there was no localization on anything. So there was just dubbing. So a lot of it was just for instance, a lot of the Super Sentai shows like Power Rangers, I watched that stuff 10 years before it really blew up over here.
Oh, wow.
So you're in Brazil growing up.
Yeah, I grew up there in the 80s, so I moved
you were
here.
in France for a while first?
Yeah, and then I moved back.
Okay.
I was born in Brazil, then I went to France, then I moved back.
Gotcha.
Did
you go to high school in Brazil? Or
no, I went up until 7th grade, and then I skipped 6 months because seasons are reversed. So nice. I skipped from 7th grade to 8th grade, sort of.
Oh, nice. And you came here? Or
I lived in Bay Area. That's
okay.
and then San Jose.
Bay Area. Nice.
So
were you drawing? I know you were watching anime as a kid.
I wasn't drawing at all. That's what I'm saying. Like when I was 17, I was just like, I'm gonna start drawing now.
Oh, so you didn't have like you weren't the kid who was.
No, like I mean, I probably did a little bit, but I can't remember much. My brother was the one that actually started. He started doing classical drawing. At that age.
So did you find that like at age 17 when you made that switch, did you find that you were really actually good at it and picked it up quick, or did you take a lot of it?
Not at all. But
this is great. I love this.
No, I mean, there's more to that. I think basically what happened, I think it involved a girl. Also, I think it involved getting like there's a lot of not things not working out, but then like having some sort of like self-reflection time, you know.
Wow.
This is actually more common than you.
Right? Yeah. So so I think after getting dumped, I was just like, I'm gonna, then things like really kind of turned around, and then that's when I decided to draw. But
did you start drawing like sad cartoons?
No,
like,
I mean,
Did she indirectly inspire you to draw?
No, I think it was just a confluence of things. It's just a coincidence. But I think what happened was, like, since I was a kid, I was already kind of collecting comics, but it wasn't like a big thing. But just to make things super tangential, but so I was collecting comics probably around age 7 or 8 or 9, but nothing like big. I think it was like my parents would just get my brother and I comics. But what was a big deal for us then was that we were really into G.I. Joe, and the allure of it was two things. One, it was obviously the action figures, but then at the time in Brazil, like we didn't. I think it changed after we moved, but at the time there wasn't really like there probably was like a Brazilian line, like a licensed one, but the big thing for us was like to go to the Japanese toy stores and get the imports from here. Okay. So that was like our big thing. And for some reason, some bookstores also had the English comics, the G.I. Joe comics. So that's kind of how we learned how to like read English, like through comics.
What age was this?
This is probably 8, 9, or 10. Yeah.
This would be the 80s.
Then.
Cool.
And then add to that, so we were always like watching anime on TV and all that. But then like Akira came out, and that was like huge. Like the comics first, and then the movie. So that was like gigantic, like that, totally. And I think I was around 12 when I saw it, which was also like not appropriate. I was like, I shouldn't have watched it.
You had some cool parents. You had cool parents.
No, I mean they didn't. Well, I mean,
the parents are like oblivious to that. Like,
no, I think it's just 90s. I think it's just 90s. I mean, like everyone has a story about like when they watched Ninja Scroll. Like
my parents were the same too, though.
Like that was like
totally. I had a glimpse of like Sailor Moon when I was a kid, and they thought all anime was that like light and innocent. And then like I started getting more things from Blockbuster, and they didn't care. They just trusted me. Like, oh, that looks fun. Okay. Yeah. And then I come home and it's something that I should not be seeing.
Right.
I'm like,
sure.
No, I think it was the opposite with my folks, but I think we were just, it was on TV in Brazil a lot. Even there was so many shows that never came out here and that we just watched. So I think it was just something that you can't control everything like your kids watch. I mean, I have 2 kids now, and even now, like,
have they watched?
We don't even have cable, and like it's still hard to.
How old
like,
are your kids?
I have the oldest is 5.5, and the youngest is almost 3. 2 girls, so it's
have
like.
Have you shown them any anime, Akira?
No, but they're totally into Totoro and those things, So like those things, yeah.
Like Miyazaki came too late for us. Like that wasn't our childhood.
Right.
A little bit of mine.
Right.
Because like the earliest was like Nausicaa, and I think that was like 80.
Right, which for me was also, I'd say, was like a second big movie that kind of got me thinking to like, because I saw it. I think it was 17 when I saw it. I went to FanimeCon actually when it was still at Foothill College. It wasn't even like big. It was like minuscule. This is like 97, 96. It was And I saw Nausicaa, and then everything just like blew me away too. And I think it blew me away because I think I had already seen his work years prior, but I wasn't aware it was him. Like I think Sherlock Hound was already like in the airwaves somewhere. Yeah, you should check it out. You know Sherlock Hound? Oh, it's on Crunchyroll. He did 6 episodes of that. It was it was an Italian Japanese co-production.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know Miyazaki did work on a few television shows.
Well, yeah. I actually like his work pre-Ghibli, so because I'm that much of a hipster, you know.
Yeah, he did Lupin.
Did he do any Lupin series?
Oh, yeah.
I know he did the...
I think he worked on the series.
You did the series.
Cagliostro.
Yeah. He did the first series.
Oh, he did the first series.
Yeah, like
he
back in
had
the
a hand
60s.
in, like, the Last Unicorn, so like his
like
all those crazy.
The studio did so. Topcraft. I'm gonna don't get me started.
I'm not gonna. It's time for you to nerd out.
No. Topcraft. The studio that did Nausicaa did Last Unicorn.
Okay.
So the animation studio.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's probably a lot of the same art directors and
Or
visual
same artists.
development.
Yeah, I mean they did. It was like I think they did 3 or 4 things that kind of all have like similar art direction. It was, I think it started with The Hobbit. I think that might have been or I think after Nausicaa, I think it was The Hobbit, Last Unicorn, then Thundercats, then Silverhawks.
Did they work on Little?
No, that wasn't them. That was TMS.
Oh, okay.
That was yeah.
Man, you know your stuff.
Yeah, I mean
TMS did Batman animated.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
And
There.
Giant Robo.
Cool. So I can see you were pretty, even though you weren't drawing as a kid,
Right.
you had a lot of this knowledge and you were...
No, I didn't have it. No, that knowledge came out later.
Not this
a
knowledge in
question.
particular, but you were
Right.
kind of immersed. You were
Yeah,
immersed in the
no,
world of
totally,
entertainment
yes.
and animation and
Yes,
comics and whatnot.
yes.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure.
So how did you power through that frustration when you realized you didn't start like most people did at a very young age?
Mhm.
You're starting pretty late. Well, not,
Yes.
don't ever say it's too late though. Like,
Right.
I want to get that in people's heads.
Oh yeah.
But
Right.
like, how did you push through that frustration?
I don't know. I still do this. I still do it daily. It's like I'm trying to draw a hand. I'm like I can't. This yeah. So for me, it's still a struggle. I don't think the struggle ends. You know,
Yeah.
it just it just starts, and then if you choose it to end, then I think that's when you're done. Because if you decide that you're good enough, then you're good enough,
It's
then
It's good.
It's also interesting, like learning your earliest, like kind of animation and comic book passions, because like I think you're the first action artist we've had in the show so far, like someone who's taken
Sure.
an action route.
maybe yeah.
And like even though I imagine all of us have read like several comics and
Right.
growing up with comic books, you're the only one who like sourced that.
I guess. I mean, I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't shy away from being known as an action guy, even though it's hard to keep that.
It's tough.
But I think it's I think it's just a confluence of things. It probably started now jumping way ahead, but it's probably started because of 9. Because I worked on a feature film, and that was like my first job in animation.
Yeah,
Actually,
Tim Burton's produced
Yeah.
CG animation.
CG.
Yeah,
I remember.
so-
I went to see that in the theater.
That was
Yeah.
your first.
that was my first gig
So
in
how,
the business.
How did your life lead up to that gig?
I think it just really came down to being at the right school at the right time, and then
What school was that?
UCLA. So I went to UCLA for undergrad and grad. I was there for too long.
Did I read that you got your bachelor's in Japanese?
Yes, because
So you can
that's
speak Japanese?
Sort of.
Okay.
I used to be able to a lot more. Like in 2010, my wife and I went on a honeymoon there, and then I was able to get around. But it's tough to kind of keep if
It's
you're not.
hard.
And I know because English is not even my first language, so I know that immersion is like key. So.
We have a surprise for you. We
Yeah.
can all speak fluent Japanese, and the rest of the internet.
Oh
is
no.
actually gonna be, that would be cool, wouldn't it? If we
Sure.
could pull it off?
Yeah. I mean.
Okay, so going back for a second, so you were 17 years old.
Yes.
You decided to make the switch from music
Yes.
to animation,
Which wasn't easy.
And
I
then
mean, yeah.
This is when you were in the Bay Area,
Yes.
and you got into UCLA
Through music too.
through music.
It wasn't. I didn't have a portfolio. I did an audition,
okay.
and then I was like a music major for like a quarter,
Okay.
and then I was just like,
You went
I'm.
UCLA undergrad.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And then I was just like, bye. And they're like, oh, so you just got here just so you can get into art? I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Hey, man,
So-
that's a good way to do it.
So
I
then,
use my basketball skills.
yeah, you gotta do what you have, and then.
You hack the system.
But I think in a way it kind of I wouldn't say it backfired, but it I didn't expect it to go where it went because I ended up not being obviously I didn't get a BA in art. I got a BS in Japanese because
Yeah.
the art major was like liberal art major. It wasn't like a
Okay.
commercial art major.
Yeah.
And I was like after 3/4 of like crazy stuff. I was just like, I can't I can't handle this.
Yeah, for
pretty
sure.
much. Yeah.
That's a really unique story. Like, so you got in not really drawing very much.
I didn't have I mean, I was drawing, but I didn't have a portfolio at all.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't get into that.
And you were like, all right, I'm here for music. Just kidding.
Right.
And then you decided to do animation. Did you find it really challenging to keep up with the rest of the kids doing art?
Well,
even though you were studying
let's put on that note, like, I wasn't doing animation itself. I actually only started animating when I was 21, 22.
Okay.
21.
So did you take did you take art classes at UCLA?
Yes. I mean, yeah. And I was taking also art classes at this trade school actually nearby here called, I mean, now we have a bunch of them now, but it used to be called Associates in Art. But now I think it kind of transformed into the LA Figurative something or other. But I think, like, since the early 2000s, these schools kind of like really blew up. Like CDA is a big one.
I was about to say, like, concept
CDA, yeah. So like,
that's awesome.
Like Associates was kind of like the predecessor. So because I think a lot of those teachers went there. And anyway, so I was doing that as well.
So did you go after you finished school with your major in with your bachelor's in Japanese?
Right.
And did you know you wanted to work in animation as a profession, or did that come later?
No, that's the thing. I never really finished because by my last year undergrad, I was already taking grad classes in the animation department.
Okay, cool.
So I kind of gamed the system. No, but that was like a normal thing they could do that I don't think they allow anymore. But like a lot of people that were transferred to the animation department, they would allow them to take classes as undergrad, so they wouldn't have to pay like 3 years of grad school.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. UCLA doesn't have an undergrad for animation.
They don't. I think that was what the late chair wanted to do for years, and for some reason I don't know the specifics as to why that never happened, but it never happened. So on the flip side, then what we got, like when we got in, it was like an incredibly eclectic group of people every year. Because I mean, we got people from like Harvard Law. We got people like that were going to animate. Yeah, it was crazy. Because like Call Arts has like the program separated. Like they had the character animation and the experimental, but and they're huge. But UCLA is like this minuscule department that, ironically, I think it was the one that inspired all the other schools. I mean, Call Arts used to be Choin Art, but I mean, I think the UCLA model inspired like USC and other schools to follow that, because I think it was founded in the late 40s by two Disney animators, and then so they kind of pushed this whole auteur thing of like one person, one film, and so that's So I kind of learned the hard way of just like when I got there. But yeah, and touching on what we talked earlier before, I think the reason why also it was a good place for me is because when I was still kind of figuring out what to do, and I almost dropped out of college and I was just almost just going to do trade school stuff, but I stuck through because basically the chair then said, "Oh, you don't need to learn how to draw to animate," and I was just like, "What?" Like for me, I was just like, "What?"
What did you mean?
I didn't. I think because animation is such a wide medium, then you really don't,
stop motion.
There's like so much, but even. I think what he meant is don't have to be a draftsman or
That's true.
Which ironically, that's kind of the path that I took.
You don't have to have perfect technical execution.
Right. I think it was just kind of liberating because I was during undergrad when I was an art major, I was also constantly trying to get into the design department at UCLA, and I got rejected like 4 times, and then I never got in. But all my friends were there, so.
That just makes you want it more, right?
I guess so. I mean, the biggest irony.
I'm in already because my friends are there.
Yeah.
But the school doesn't know that.
No.
They're giving you tips, like, tell me.
Maybe. I mean, I definitely lacked, I never got, a color theory class or some other things. But the irony is that I ended up working a lot in motion design after college.
Okay.
So, that's kind of what those departments are kind of geared towards now. Which is,
I was going to ask, when you finished... You went to UCLA for both under and your majors as well, your masters as well. So did you get a job right out of college, or did it take a while to get a job?
Right. So this is where 9 comes in, because I finished my first film. So the program there, you're supposed to do 3 films.
Okay.
I did 3 films. Although my first I don't even consider it a film. So
how long was your master's program? Was that 1 year or
3 years?
3 years
supposedly, but I took 5. I don't know. It took a long time.
I know.
Mostly because the thesis film is crazy. Like everyone wants to make Fantasia, you know. So that's the problem, you know. So I took like 3 years to make my thesis film.
Nice.
But my second film, which is kind of considered my first film, that took 11 months. But you know, I was like in my early 20s. I didn't have kids.
Hand drawn?
Yeah, both of them, and both of them are on my website now.
Cool.
They they kind of had a second life a couple of years ago because Frederator kind of attached my channel to their roster, you know. So
oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean they were on YouTube a few years ago, and maybe like at most they had like 20,000 views, which was already like crazy, you know.
Yeah.
But then like in 1 year they got like 400,000 views, like because of Frederator. So that exposure, that was like awesome. Just, you know, I still get comments like every other day on both.
What were these films called? Can I ask you?
Oh yeah, so the first film is called The Fox and the Baby, and the second film is Her Lion's Jump. And the second film, they're both on my website.
Cool. Studio-catch.com.
Yes. And then /animation. That's where you can see my demo reel and my short films as well.
Nice,
my thesis film kind of had a bit of a life in the festival circuit in 2009 as well.
Cool.
I was just too broke to go anywhere with it. But I think the biggest festival they got into was Vancouver International Film Festival. So but I didn't go.
Is that what led to your job at 9?
No, this is before. Oh yeah.
Okay.
So going back, so I finished my first film, and then Shane Acker, the director of 9, was also taking like a long time to finish the short film 9.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And so, but he's maybe almost a decade older than me. But he just took forever. No, but I think we just somehow we got in touch with each other just because like he saw my short film there, and even after I got the gig, I was like, I don't know how like we kind of got in touch, because like my films are so diametrically opposed to like CG, you know. It was like 2D cute animals and like really simple stories, and 9 was just like this crazy, you know, post like apocalyptic thing that was like super dark and like, you know, super realistic CG, like. So anyway, but yeah, around 2005 it kind of worked. I was already working on my thesis film for about 6 months just on the animatic and the boards. And then he said, oh yeah, I need an assistant. So like he brought me in. This is during treatment. So I was just like his assistant.
So you were still in school?
Yeah, I took a leave of absence. Okay. So I left, and then I was still kind of working on my film for a while, like after work. And then the film got greenlit. I mean, we kind of helped him put a treatment together. I did some concept work on it too.
Oh, cool. So you were there you were there from the kind of the.
I was there for a year and a half on the first pre-production, because they had multiple pre-productions.
Yeah. Did you guys like develop a friendship before that happened and everything?
So I mean, we developed it as we worked. I think you know after. I mean, we still keep in touch, just not as much. Like I think I see him maybe twice a year now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just hard. We both have kids too, but you know, I think the 9 crew were always kind of keeping in touch somehow because we were together for so long.
Okay.
And I learned a lot from him too, because for a good maybe 8 months it was just me and him in an office, like either putting animatics together for animation tests for studios to bid, you know, to do the animation for the movie, or just like designing characters.
That's pretty cool. So you basically had a
and then I went back to school after that. That's the thing.
Okay, cool.
Which was like after 9, this is 2007 or so. I went back to school, and then for a good year and a half I just animated for like a year on my film.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, straight up. I had kind of enough money saved up to do that. I had some help too, but I just did that because it was a little bit because of Shane too. Like he kind of encouraged me to go back and finish the film.
And this is after the feature film 9?
This is after the feature film. Well, after my work on the feature was done, because the feature didn't come on until 2009.
Okay,
but you know, the pre-production was
999.
Right.
Oh, 999. 9 came out. Yeah. Now
so, So then, but you know.
So after you worked on your film, you said you animated on your film for a year.
Yes.
So you were just like. Locked yourself in a room and you just did
I was also luckily, which again UCLA helped with that. They let me use their resources for that, cool. Which I don't think they do that anymore for graduate students that aren't supposed to use their resources.
Yeah.
But at the time, you know, like I think they really wanted to harness the the creative potential, I guess, that they had, and
that makes sense.
And they still kind of like that. I think just a bit stricter on time, because both my films are 6.5 minutes long.
Oh wow.
So,
Dude, no wonder
like I think the first film, I think the first film is about maybe 2,500 to 3,000 drawings, but the second film is more like 4,000 to 5,000 drawings, Wow. So, yeah. So it takes, and it was on paper, and
Do you have any advice for people that are doing that right now, that are doing a frame by frame short film?
Don't do it on. I was just gonna say, don't do it on paper.
Get a computer.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna do it on paper, use the medium. At the time I just didn't know, and I think this is like 2005, 2006. When I started. Flash wasn't that powerful at the time. It probably could do even the stuff like hand-drawn stuff. And then there weren't a lot of like Harmony wasn't the Harmony that it is today. Or even like TV Paint was like Mirage. It was just like the options were just the options just weren't there.
So paper was your best bet.
I would probably just tell people like have realistic expectations for like the final goals that you have. Like if you're going to be working on a medium like paper, be patient with yourself versus something digital, because then people are going to be like, oh my god, like I only got this much done, but it's like, look what you're working with.
Right. Yeah, again, I think it's just a generational thing. I don't know how it been from paper. Like I learned so much from timing.
Yeah,
right.
Because I did my thesis, but it was only 3 minutes on paper within the 9 months of my my senior year.
Do you have your thesis anywhere online?
I could find it. But,
I want to see.
Yeah.
I colored everything digitally through Photoshop.
Right. That was the same thing.
Awesome.
I used a Japanese program that the school happened to have that no one's using called Rados Pro.
I remember that.
Yeah. I think actually.
That was going around for a while. I was like, this is the new feature of digital animation.
Yeah.
We don't use it in the States.
It worked. It worked really well. I think actually, like Animaniacs, like TMS was doing that for the WB shows.
A little
like
later,
Tiny Toons, not Tiny Toons, but Animaniacs and some of the other shows were using that, and so
cool.
it had a really cool rendering engine that I'm pretty sure now you can mimic it in After Effects, but I don't work with After Effects at all. So, yeah.
My next question for you is: so you said you were working on this film for a year. After you finished your film, what was?
Well, 3 years. Like the last year was just like animation. That was just like post production. Yeah. But like it took 3 years from like scratch. Like this is the idea, and then by the time I was done, it's 3 years.
That's
Yeah.
intense, man.
Yeah.
What was next after that? Did you?
Then I was unemployed, and like it was 2008, and the market crashed, and
That's
sucked.
what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Then,
I was going to ask, is there a period of time between
yeah.
that and getting a job in the industry where you're like floating around, twiddling your thumbs, doubting yourself?
Yeah. I was lucky that I was living with my wife, then girlfriend. We're living together, and she kind of helped me out a little bit because she was at Rhythm and Hues for a long time. She also works in the industry. She's a VFX compositor, so yeah. It's it's hard. I'll say that with kids and with both working in the industry.
Did you have kids at that point or
no?
No. Oh, right.
But 2008 was rough, especially because I had a huge carrot dangled in front of me, like around summer of that year. It was ILM calling me to work on Clone Wars. I didn't get the gig, but I'll never forget that interview because they flew me from here to Oakland. They picked me up from Oakland, drove me all the way to Big Rock Ranch.
Wow.
It was like this whole thing that
How did that come up?
It was I think it was a coordinator on 9, ended up at ILM. It was a recruiter.
Okay.
But and it was and so it was just like, I still just remember just the event itself because I was like, that will never happen again. Like they're gonna fly me for an interview, and then they flew me back on the same day. It was
did not getting that gig like push you further than want to like?
No, I think it drove me into a depression because like it was rough. Because I was like, but also I think. I think I look at a lot of the times where I struggled, and I think that's kind of what builds resilience,
For sure.
And it's tough when you're in the middle of it because that's all you see, and that's all you can't really. You can't really see your past accomplishments or your future potential things that you can do still, and so.
You're just commiserating.
Dealing with despair is really hard. I think in an industry where like things change so quickly, and you don't have time sometimes to assess or even figure out like, oh, what just happened. So
So how did you work yourself out of that kind of slump and that quote unquote depression?
I think I had help with friends. Just some friends helped me out with just putting my name out on some motion stuff. That's really when I went to motion design a lot. So for a good 5 years, I was just doing commercials, and that's where I learned how to really animate. Because up until that time, I was just doing like character animation, from my films. But I was really scared of like effects animation. Like I wouldn't even touch it. I was just like, I have no idea how to even start this.
Yeah.
How to do it.
What kind of commercials was it like?
I worked on a bunch of stuff. Well, products themselves, I don't know if I worked on some Google spots, like for Google Plus for the launch and that. My reel kind of shows that. I've done some car commercials. Cool. But I think the biggest things I worked on was a Nike basketball festival thing that happened in 2010. And then there was this short film going around called Metamorphosis that Buck did, and I did a shot of that. But that was like a huge undertaking of that. Like I only had like a very minor role in it, but it was like it took me 3 weeks to just work on one shot. Like they were treating it as it's an art piece. I mean, yeah. Cool. So there's some things I worked in motion that I'm really like proud of just having been there. Yeah.
Just for kind of like clarification, how much time would you spend on like a commercial project? Would that be like a month's worth of work or a few months worth of work?
Yeah, those are really, really fast. Like they usually range between, as an animator, you're probably going to be there from between a week to 2 weeks, depending on the project. If it's a campaign, 3 months tops. Like I worked on a Reebok campaign years ago, and that was great because it was 3 months of work, and we actually got shoes. Like, this is the only time we got swag.
Free shoes.
Awesome.
Yeah, Reebok loved it so much. They're like, here, you guys have some shoes. I'm like,
how
okay.
did you get in the shoe industry?
I know. I was like, I worked in car commercials. I never got a car. I would. I know, like Toyotas or whatever.
Even like half a car.
I know, right?
I know.
I think everybody that worked in it one piece.
But I know.
Yeah.
But I really cut my teeth. It's almost like going to school again, working commercials, just because, especially in my first gig, we actually did it on paper.
Oh, wow.
And we used, like, and the lead animator was this old school guy who, I don't know if you're familiar with Liquid Television.
Yeah,
he created stick figure theater. And this guy called Robin Steele, and he was like amazing, and I was just doing in-betweens for him, but like he wasn't even testing, and he was just like animating with like Sharpies. He was just like, he was just so nonchalant and so like he just couldn't give, but I was just like, wait a minute, does he really care? It was like this weird way of like being a pro but also being detached from the work, but at the same time the work was like way up there. So I learned a lot in that first commercial. This was at Stardust, I think, back when they were Stardust. I think they're called Los York now. But so yeah, that I learned a lot just from that, and then I had some other gaps in between. But I think between 2010 and 2012, I did motion. I was able to kind of like do motion fairly well, just because commercials pay a lot too. So sure. You can kind of work for a month and then not work for a month, and you're like, okay, sort of.
When you were working in commercials, when that was the kind of thing you were doing to pay the bills, was that something that you enjoyed doing, or did you want to get out of that and move on to something?
Yeah, I think I've been constantly trying to get out of it. Just because also my skill set is not really geared towards it. Like, I think in commercials you kind of have to be, yes and no. So, for one, like when I got into it, people were saying like the pool of animators there is like minuscule. It's like maybe, I think I know all the quote unquote, like they call them cell animators, like they're 2D animators that do commercials, But to be able to like jump from one gig to another, you have to just be able to do like everything from like design to After Effects animation to puppet animation to this and that, and And at the time, and even to this day, I'm not really that much of a fan of puppet stuff, and I've done some of it.
Yeah.
But I'm not it's just a different kind of thing that I'm not really a fan of. But I was also doing boards at the time, so I did some boards for commercials, not a lot, and I have friends that only do commercial boards, and they were to have a living doing that.
Was that the first time you did boards professionally in the commercials?
No, because I did it on 9 before, but like for for commercials, I think it was a buck. Yeah, I did some stuff for Google and Honda, and Scrabble. Yeah, there's some other stuff. It's on my website. Yeah, forget it. There's so many that I kind of forgot.
For sure.
Yeah.
So how did you get up to your next big animation gig?
I think this was probably around 2012. Yeah, I worked on a Nicktoon show called Rush Zone, which
what was it called?
It was called Rush Zone. It was like NFL meets Power Rangers. Yeah, it was really it was it was bizarre.
How did you end up getting that?
I think so. Yeah, so since 9, I was always been in touch with some of the concept artists there, and one of them referred me to an agency. So for a while, I had an agent that kind of helped me with that. So I had an agent for like 3 years.
The first person that we interviewed that had an agent.
Right.
Yeah.
I know some other people though. I would love to know more about agencies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it worked for a while, and then when it stopped working, I kind of decided to kind of drop it. And so I think. And I know people that are still represented by this particular agency, and they're doing really well. I think it just didn't work for me for the things I wanted to do. So, but it helped in the beginning. Like I think that's kind of how I broke into TV animation. Really.
Cool.
How did you find? Did someone recommend you that agency?
Yeah, but it took me like I think they didn't respond to me for like a year.
Okay.
So it was just like I had already given up.
Are so weird in the way they're like they're really hard to find, and then also a lot of people don't want to like talk about their agencies. Like they're almost like, oh, you have to be like in some sort of little, I don't know,
cult
kind of cult, word of mouth.
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I left, so I'm not really the best person to like.
Yeah.
I'm not an advocate, obviously, for them, especially working in animation.
You don't recommend it to people starting out there? I
think it depends. Like one of my friends, like. I think if you're really big, then it works for you. I mean, one of my you probably heard of Leo Matsuda. He's a story artist at Disney who just left, and he's now represented by William Morris. And I think it's just like, well, I remember like we had lunch a few months ago, and I think he was just telling me like, he was telling me that he was trying to, I don't think I'm talking out of school here because obviously he left and he did this. So, but I think he realized he just wanted to direct more, So I think that's why he left. But I think to go to, William Morris is like this huge thing, And even when I was on 9, I was kind of already starting to get familiar with that because like Shane was represented with like CAA, I think at the time. I don't know if he's still there, but if you get to one of these big agencies, then I think things start working out. But I was in a really small one.
No, that makes sense. They took a year to get back to because I imagine the agents will evaluate your work and decide if they want to represent you or not.
Maybe. I don't even know. I think it just took them a year, maybe just because, like, I don't know why it took them a year.
Yeah, because that would be my issue, because, like, I've never had an agent, so, like, I just get the work through personal contacts and people
my
work.
Right.
But I'm like, is the agent doing that on their own and then going out of their way to get you those gigs?
I mean, that's what you think, you know? But I don't think that's what was going on. Well, also, like, I don't know, no matter what size agency you are, you're still competing with their other clients. Right. So it's just like, it's this weird relationship where you're like, that they're, it's a weird thing. So,
but at least you got that rush zone because of the agent, getting into the agency. And
and it helped. Like I said, I think the first couple of years, I mean, she got me into a lot of pitch meetings. I pitched for about like a year or so.
Some of your own ideas?
Yeah, I did. I pitched like some shorts at Cartoon Hangover. I pitched at Nickelodeon. I pitched like 2 feature films. Because from 9, from my experience there, I had experience like putting a treatment together and all that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
and I still kind of want to do that. I pitch my own stuff.
You should have him on again just to like go over that process.
The pitch process.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't done it in like 2 years. So to me, I think I need to go back and relearn.
Reassess it.
Yeah, because especially on my last gig, we had so many people from Nickelodeon who are already in the development program. I was just like, how do they? I guess they're just there, and like they're making.
The way pitching has gone, it's kind of changed. Because I remember I pitched like maybe 5 years ago, and then I pitched again like a couple months ago.
Oh, that's great.
And then what they told me like a few months ago when I pitched, they were like, "Oh yeah, now we're looking for things on multiple platforms. We're looking to even make Snapchat shows,
right,
like VR shows.
Right.
Like I never even thought of doing like a short 10-second show.
Yeah, it's weird. And I mean, I think around between 2010 and 2012, I did some other stuff, which it's actually up on my site still. I did some like kind of short like bore like story things that one of those things ended up being a thing I pitched to Nickelodeon actually, but yeah, after a year and a half of pitching and not being able to like do anything with all that stuff, I was just like, I just want to go back into my comic and work on my comic, because I've been working on this web comic for like 8 years, but it's like super slow. It's called Hockey Living Guts, and that's the thing that's on my website, and that's the artwork that you saw in the preview for this episode.
Nice,
and I do have like a pitch together for that too, like to be turned into like a TV show, but I haven't been able to actually pitch that anywhere.
A lot of people like that piece of art.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Comments on it.
I know. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, I think that's kind of the thing now, like to just, do your work, do the thing that obviously, and it's the cliche, do the thing that you love, because. Yeah, I think for a while I was just too stretched thin to like trying to do too many things, and so that's why I don't regret like not being able to pitch for years now, because I just balancing my life right now is that's like this like sometimes just getting out of the house every morning I was just like, oh, I made it, like
step into the sunlight.
Yeah, it's just because with kids and everything, and like I'm more about the small victories now, and then hopefully getting the bigger victories,
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So people need to focus on.
Yeah.
Little victories.
Yeah.
So your first job in the television animation was Rush Zone, right, on Nickelodeon.
Yes.
Which kind of came about through the agency.
Yes.
And then how did that lead to more gigs? Was it just like word of mouth, meeting people in the industry, or was it?
I think for those first 2 years is because of her. I mean, I think after that, though, she just gave me weight. Like I don't know.
Her being the agent.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I should check with other artists, but I feel like I just tested way too much for boards. Like, I think between 2013 and 2015, I think I did literally 25 tests, like board tests, Yeah. Because, when you're desperate, like, and you just, if it's out there and they give it to you, which shouldn't be this way, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole either about this whole testing thing is a whole nother, that's like a whole nother, those are things even one.
Point, not even have to test at some point.
But I mean, like, if we can't even, like, even one union meeting doesn't cover all those issues, then we're not going to be able to even get that through here.
And there's issues and controversies going through testing for
right
now too. But I've always been like, you should be able to look at a person's portfolio and tell,
of course,
can this person do the work or not? And even when you're not super sure, maybe then you give them a small test.
Or even their resume, if they've worked on another show. That
you can ask people. Like,
right.
I was like, with this person. Yeah,
so,
there's ways to find out beyond.
And of course I say that, and I'm still like taking tests, because like there's like, what are you gonna do,
I've taken a few tests. I've taken some like bullshit tests, and I've taken some tests. And I was like, that's fine.
The one test, I think there was one test that I actually liked doing, and I think it's actually garnered some attention. It was for Bad Seeds. Well, Harvey Beaks now, but it was known as Bad Seeds. And that was the only time, and it was crazy because I think I did it in like 4 days, and it was like on Sunday night I sent the test out. It was like 10 and I was like, oh, they're gonna get it in the morning, and then literally like at 11 o'clock the same night, like the show creator gets back to me. He's like, I love the test and everything, but positions are filled and everything, and I didn't get it. But it was just crazy. Like that's never happened before. The show creator gets back to me right away. Because he just happened. I guess I just caught him before he went. I don't know.
Was that Greenblatt, right?
Yeah, Carl.
Something Greenblatt, Carl Greenblatt.
But I think I liked the test too because he wasn't like he just gave like I think it was like 3 kids in the woods, one's embarrassed. That's it. Like it was just like a very very loose outline, So I was able to actually, write a story, create a story, and do all that, and I kind of. I'm kind of interested to do more board-driven stuff, if possible. Because I mean that's kind of why I still do the comic too.
Yeah.
Because after working on so many scripted shows, you kind of want to be able to have your own words. Yeah.
A lot of Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network shows have right now, right?
Right.
Very board-driven.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
for sure. So what did you work on after Rush Zone?
So then after that I went to, I think the next big thing in between some other commercial stuff was X-Cop. Yeah, so I was a key animator on season 1, and that was a weird gig.
Animator.
Yeah, I was a key animator, but
they animated it all here.
Yeah, well, I think the freelance to Atlanta as well, some of it, but mostly here. Nice. But yeah, that was a weird gig because I was probably on the one time where I saw there was so much talent in one room, and yet it was probably one of the. And like, like they knew, like the management was just really, it was really badly managed place,
Yes.
So
this was
ADHD, yeah. I mean, and I mean they closed already, so it's just like,
yeah.
I think anyone can talk out of school for that. It's like, how you? I mean, they had, I think, good ideas, but when they start cooking the books, it's like, what are you gonna do? And we try to,
and they didn't have a proper chain structure of who was doing what work and who wasn't
yeah.
doing what work.
And they weren't union, and all the other Fox shows were, and I was just like, "There's what?" And they were so that's another rabbit hole.
we could just do we should just do an episode. We bring in everyone who's worked at ADHD and just talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of survivors. Yeah.
Write that down.
But they all went to do amazing things. Like I think a lot of people ended up at Nickelodeon on like Loud House and Adventure Time, and I mean that's the thing. It was crazy because it was like a lot of it was like kids straight out of school, out of Color Arts.
Oh, yeah. They did that on purpose.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But then there were also people that like there was this comic book artist there that was really amazing. He's a character designer now, I think. But yeah, it was.
Was it Anthony Piper?
No, it was Derek Kirk Kim.
Okay.
Yeah, and then John Pham, who's an art director. I mean, they're all like amazing people, and it was just like it was. So in that sense, I think what I learned was just having this like collective struggle. Like everyone was kind of on the same boat.
Yeah.
And they just wanted to do good work. So yeah.
The thing about the lesson I got from I was at ADHD briefly. I was on the XCOP pilot.
Right.
But the thing
what do they call Friends Night?
Yeah.
It's one of those Friends Night, right? Yeah.
But the thing I will tell people and learn is like even if you get to a studio, even if the studio management isn't great, even if the production isn't great, the best thing you can do is work that job, use that to build connections into your next gig.
Yeah, of course.
It's not that like especially when you start the industry, that is not the end of your career.
Yeah. And it's a weird thing. Like the older I get, it's almost like, I mean, it's like, do you want to work on a high-profile project with a crappy crew, or do you want to work on like a mediocre project but with a great crew? That's like like lately I'm like
the latter has always been used most of my jobs, right. And those are always my strongest friendships.
Of course, but then also the product, like when it first seems mediocre, then by the end of production, it's actually not as like mediocre as you thought it would have been. That's the thing. Like, so in that sense, I that's one thing I learned a lot. I think. And maybe that's just from being spoiled and working on 9, like I thought, like I really want to work on like quote unquote like high profile projects, and so for a long time, even
9 was pretty high profile.
Yeah, but I mean, like I think after that it was just like what's next, and like where can I go next, and I felt like really like down because I couldn't like find something that will like measure up to that, and I think it took a few years to kind of like just let go of that philosophy and say like that's not the way to like really even approach being a professional. I think I should just like focus on doing good work and being like being friendly with people and making friends, I guess, because that's at the end of the day that's what you got,
For sure. That's actually really good advice. Kind of not being stuck like up on a high horse there, saying, "Oh, this is where my last project was."
Whether it's someone else's creation or even your own, like don't like you're not making Fantasia. Like even people making Fantasia, like they weren't thinking they were making any Fantasia bombed.
Absolutely not.
Or if you are kind of in that mindset, work on it like as a long-term goal where you can build your like projects up towards that goal.
Of course.
Just like, oh, I'm this awesome before having all this experience.
Yeah. Right.
But like,
you know what I mean?
Of course.
But like even with the Fantasia crew at the time, the people working on that were like, this is miserable. This is
of course, yeah.
They're shitting on the entire time. Like no one believed in it.
Yeah.
It didn't do well ultimately.
Of course.
When it came out, but now it's a legacy.
Right.
Animated.
But that's
movie.
the thing, you don't know. So like to impose this kind of philosophy into whatever project you're doing is never really good. I think the best thing to do is just to say, well, make the most out of it with what you got. I think, and luckily for the last few projects that's been the case. Like my last project when I was directing at Powerhouse, I was really, really lucky. It was like I couldn't have worked in a better studio. It was small, so I think that had something to do with it. But like, there was no drama. There was like everyone was like it was kind of a mix of like some experienced people, but mostly people kind of new to things. They maybe had 1 or 2 shows in the pocket,
Cool.
But it was such a good like work environment. Like
what show is that? Can we mention
this is called The Adventures of Kid Danger. Is going to premiere in Nickelodeon. Yeah, it's been announced. So.
Okay, cool.
Maybe January. I don't know. I think it's January, February. It's definitely 2018.
The Adventures of Kid Danger.
Yeah, it's based on a live action show called Henry Danger. One of their
sure.
that Nickelodeon has, and so they decided to make a cartoon out of it.
And you're an episodic director.
Yes.
So
I directed.
Work up to something.
Yes.
Like you became a director.
Right.
Eventually.
Which also came out of nowhere because I remember testing for the show. Another test. But I just tested for boards. I mean, I applied for board director, but the test was the same for boards. So even after my interview, I wasn't sure. Like I was asking the producer, I'm like, so are you gonna bring me as a director or I wasn't sure until like the last minute. Like, oh no, you come in as director. I was like, oh okay. So it was like this weird situation where like I didn't know.
So as a director, I know that's kind of. You're kind of overseeing. What is it? Kind of overseeing all the other board artists on the show, or how exactly does that work?
Yeah, I had a team of 2 board artists, and then we had like some floating revisionists.
Okay.
Brian's a director too.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's kind of how. I mean, we met through shared friends, but I think we had lunch like soon after I had that gig, just because we had been in touch online for too long. We're like, we should meet in person. This is kind of ridiculous.
We have a lot of mutual friends and like a lot of mutual interests. So let's talk. Let's figure out who we are.
But it was good to talk to him because he's got more experience as a director than I have. So I think it was good to No, it's true. It's good to talk to you in the beginning because it's just like, the first few weeks I was just like, oh boy, like I'm not sure if I am being like too strict or not strict enough on certain things, So it was good to it was good to like know like where like how other people kind of fare with that.
Yeah, and you kind of figure out not just like the politics of the show, but also the crew dynamics of your board artists.
Of course, and each crew is different, so it's like, I obviously learned as we went, obviously because like it's every production is so unique to the people that you're working with, Did
you end up doing some of the boards yourself, or was it more?
I think what happened, this was the kind of show where I think the first couple of episodes, the supervising director would launch us like the whole team, and so there was very little thumbnailing. A lot of it was the board artists, and then I think as we went along, just due to time constraints and just like ideas, I think then the supervising director just trusted us to just do the launches. So I think after the second episode, I launched my team by myself, and then after that. I was able to somehow have some time to actually thumbnail most of the episode. I think part of the reason why I also ended up getting a director gig for this past gig is that 2 years ago I worked on this show for a Chinese production, and we were doing the episodes solo. So it was 11 minutes per board artist on like a 4-week schedule, which was like super tight. But I learned, and it was there for like 11 months, yeah. But I learned so much, and all the people there were like veterans, or veteran, like from Universal, from Marvel, and everything. It was kind of like an action comedy, maybe like to 6 and 8 year olds. It should come out soon. It's out in China already.
What's it called?
It's called Vault the Wonder Deer, and it should be coming out.
I had one of my friends edited that show. I think.
Oh, okay.
My friend Robbie Dufresne.
Oh, you know him? Yeah, Rob. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I was on that, and that's another situation where it was like, because the crew was small, it was like great, no problem. It was like everyone got along, but cool. It was. I think because I was able to like manage one episode solo for a long time, I think they realized, oh, maybe you can deal with 2 artists.
So you said there was a lot of veterans on that show, on the Vault the Wonder Deer.
Yes.
So it was
my directors were definitely.
You were kind of soaking up what they were doing.
I think so. Yeah, I worked with 2 directors. It was just 2 directors. Well, the supervised director was also another veteran who I had worked with on Rush Zone, this guy called Ron Myrick.
Okay.
He's been doing stuff since like the 80s,
Oh,
so
cool. Nice.
And the other 2 guys too, I think, one of them, Dan Fawcett, I think he's done a lot of Marvel stuff like action, and then Scott Hemming was my other director. He had been at Universal on Curious George for like literally 10 years, and I was just like, nice. I've not met a lot of people that have been in the same job for 10 years in this industry.
That show's never going to end.
Yeah, and I think they're back, and they're back now. Now it's at DreamWorks.
They have like 10 more seasons.
Still, I know, it's crazy. Yeah, so like, but sorry. Yeah. So, but I learned a lot, and it was cool. I think, and again, I think that was what they kind of had that attitude that I was talking about. Where like, I think after a while, it's not even like, I think for a few years maybe I mistook that for jadedness, which there's quite a bit of that too in the industry, especially for I think there's definitely a generational like gap and also generational jadedness, you could say. But
sure.
With the directors that I worked with, I think it wasn't that. It was just like this weird like detachment that somehow they cared but also didn't care at the same time.
Yeah.
And it kind of made everything better, because then like
they were all business. They knew exactly what needed to be
done. But then like and I think that's something that a lot of animation schools don't talk about, because I think when I got out of animation school, but even when I was in animation school, there's a lot of mythologizing about studios and productions, and I feel like that's really destructive, because like if you like, then it really feels like if you don't get whatever you're supposed to get, like you're a loser, and
sure.
that really hinders whatever progress you're trying to make.
And then when you do start, if someone does get that gig and it's not what they expected, how they mythologize,
of course,
it's like there's something wrong here. It's like, no, it's just normal.
Right.
It's just a job.
Yeah, or either you think you're doing something wrong, or so it's that's something that took a few years for me to learn as well. So I mean, if there's anything to connect to the beginning, I feel like I'm still learning. Like, even though I started at 17, like I'm still like, I feel like I have the same mindset of like, I'm still catching up.
And that's kind of the bringing it full circle. That's kind of what you said in the beginning. Like once you say, okay, I'm done learning, then then that's it. That's the best you're gonna get.
Right.
I think that's how you started off this interview, saying something like that.
Yes. And I think
always want to be learning.
It's tough in an industry like this to get chances to fail, but you kind of have to make that your own. Like you have to allow yourself to fail, but also, I guess, be lucky enough in productions that allow you to fail.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's what's been in the last, and I've gotten fired, a couple of times.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes like justifiably so, sometimes not so.
Yeah.
And that's also normal. So, but that also took me a while.
Yeah. That's my biggest fear, and then never coming up from
right there. Oh no, that's happened twice, and it happens. It's rough. Yeah, it's rough.
Did you want to talk more about why that happened, or is that?
I think I'll talk about. I think the last time it happened, it was, I think, a lot better than the first time. Because I think the first time there were some shenanigans that I think like weren't well done. But I think the second time, maybe because it was a union studio, it was a little easier to deal with, and also because I still respect those guys a lot. But I think you learn your limits in a way, But then, it's like at the time I just wasn't drawing well enough, and now I still don't think I am. But somehow I'm managing to do like similar type of show, like similar work in other shows, So, I mean, I think that happens a lot too. Like sometimes you're not a good fit for the show, and it takes a long time to like, because we're so in touch with what we do. It's so hard to like separate that from like, that doesn't mean that you're like a crappy artist. It's like, I mean, I don't know if I fully recovered from that concept still, but that's something that also needs to like that needs to be like talked more often about, because I think it happens more often than people want to admit. I think from both ends, because like no one wants to hire someone that they're going to fire them, obviously.
Yeah. And everyone wants to be awesome at everything, and everyone wants to be successful at everything that they're given. So
right.
Everyone's super hard on themselves.
Right. There's that. Yeah. But then there's also, again, it's the whole thing, you want to work on certain things that mean something to you, so like, for sure. I've lost gigs where I was like really passionate about, and that was worse than like losing a gig that was like, okay.
I've had one of those.
So, but you still survive, as long as you kind of just keep reminding, I mean, John Kay got fired from his own show, so if you keep that in mind,
there's a lot of factors behind that.
Yeah. I know, but I mean, if you keep that in mind, so like even if you have your own show, that could happen. Then you're like, well,
Yeah. So. One of my bosses, Dan Harmon, got fired from his own show too. Everyone got
rehired.
Right.
Oh, Dan Harmon.
Dan Harmon.
Oh, yeah.
Got fired from Community.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a very brief like interaction with him because I was at Starburns when was it 2014.
Oh, what project?
I was doing animation on this pilot called Planet Famous, and
I remember that.
Yeah. So I worked on the pilot, and then while we were doing that, they were finishing the G.I. Joe episode of Community. And and then animation was coming back and it wasn't good. Like Rob Schraub was just like not having it. And I remember telling him, like I was just from another cubicle, I remember telling him, we can just do this in Flash. Like we can just hand draw it. And he's just like, okay, just do a test. And then the test, he's like, great. And then like, I don't know if it's because of that or not, but then they stopped the production of Planet Famous. They got all the animators from Planet Famous, and then it just like, everyone stop what you're doing. We're going to work on J. Jeff. Oh, wow. And then we did that for like 3 weeks nonstop. And like, I know. But it was great, because then like I actually got to like draw, I actually got to animate J. Joe and everything. Awesome. So really cool. I did a lot of the Cobra Commander scenes that he did. And some of the effects, like explosion effects.
So you went from Planet Famous to G.I. Jeff, and then back to Planet Famous?
For like a weekend, and I was only there for what, 3-4 months. It was very short at Starburns, yeah.
It's a cool place.
And then after that, after that, I had my first directing gig at this place called Pixamondo, which is a VFX company, but they were doing, maybe not anymore, but they were doing a lot of stuff for theme parks for China again, yeah.
Neat.
And and I did this like safety, like those videos that you see when you're waiting in line for things. So it was like a safety video kind of, exactly. But it was like, they wanted to make it not look like a safety cartoon, so it was just like a cartoon character doing funny things and all that. And they just hired me as an animator, and then they kind of give me this pitch, and then I kind of put an animatic together, and then they're like, okay, you can start animating. I'm like, I need a crew guy. It's like, I was just like, this is like 2.5 minutes of animation. I could do this, and it's just going to take forever. So then I kind of just became like a de facto animation director, just like that. And so that was my first directing gig, but that was fun. It was, again, like, it was a huge studio. I mean, I think they were doing stuff for Game of Thrones then, but they do a lot of effects animation. Like CG for TV shows. But it was so strange because they didn't have a lot of experience doing very simple 2D stuff. So yeah, it was fun getting that experience. Yeah.
That seems like
which carried on through some of your other gigs too.
Yes.
Because of that, like the ADHD and then
the that was after ADHD, but I think the last 3 years have had some sort of quote unquote progression, so to speak. Yeah, because I was able to have very maybe not last year, but I've had very short lulls in between. Yeah. Gigs, So
we skipped over one thing that I wanted to mention real quick.
Oh, sure.
You worked on the Guardians of the Galaxy show?
Yeah, I'm still doing that. I'm working season 3 right now. I've been boarding since January, so.
Nice, and that's like a very action-heavy show, right?
Yes. Very, very action-heavy. Yeah, it's almost like, I think they take it almost. It's that's a new experience to me, especially because, and I was telling you before we started recording, I was freelancing boards on that while directing on Powerhouse. I couldn't be more different. So like, that's been the challenge this year, being able to do both. And go back and forth. Because like Guardians is almost like live action. Yeah. Like it's practically like that. I mean, the backgrounds are all done in SketchUp. Like you don't even draw the backgrounds. Like they just give you 3D models, and then you just like find your shots and then put them back in Storyboard Pro and everything. So.
Do you have any advice for like someone that is? That's a storyboard artist that hasn't really done action before, that wants to jump into it, that wants to try something like that? I
think you kind of have to be an animator before, because I think action boards here they're kind of a mix between storyboard and character layout, which didn't used to be the case maybe until I don't know, like early 2000s. Sorry.
Yeah, there's no layout department.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the sole confluence of the layout department and story department results in very tight boards, which is good and bad. Like some things are tight and some things aren't. So like the action needs to be tight and the staging needs to be tight. But some of the models sometimes don't have to be like. So as opposed to like you don't have to necessarily be on model, but the proportion has to be right. So as opposed to like a Family Guy or a Simpsons, like I think they actually sometimes want you make sure that your stuff isn't or like super on model, so that they'll know not to follow.
Move more freely.
But then you end up doing like a lot more frames, So, but I think that's also seeping through some of the action comedy shows. Like Kid Danger was kind of like that. I mean, there's so much acting, because there was quote unquote. I mean, I think it's also like, so when the story, once animatics became kind of the norm, and the story department and the character layout department started becoming one, and while we were doing it as animatics, then the whole role of the timing director kind of fizzled out. Nowadays.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I never did X sheets professionally, but I did for my own films, and I took a class in it when I was in college. From a really good timing director, actually. So I know.
It's good to learn.
But it's like the thing that it's almost like this. It's almost because all the programs kind of have them, visually. It's like track reading. It's almost becoming this obsolete thing.
Yeah.
But in situations where when the broads and when the animatics get it so loose, sometimes I think they're still needed, just because like a lot of stuff ends up being like, when you put two departments together, something's got to give. So like. Sure. Not every panel has great layout.
That's the thing. They're not going to be looking at our boards. It's just enough to communicate to the animators that this is that character and this is that character moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's some pros and cons with this whole new system of boards. But one thing's for sure, like as a board artist nowadays, being an animator first, I think is definitely like a big asset. Yeah, sure, because like you're gonna be animating, like
especially for
whether you're doing, whether you're doing action or if you're doing some more comedy stuff, because most of the comedy shows now you're doing full like acting in the scenes. Eye blinks. You're doing eye blinks. I mean, you're doing it, and so it's like even if it's not like you're not animating, and some shots you are animating. Like, I've animated so many shots in Kid Danger, like full on. Like stuff was on twos. I'm like, how much faster does it need to be in it? So
that's insane, man. Wow. Yeah, they're really making.
Yeah, like we did that. So. But yes, that's just the reality, But I mean, that's the thing. I came in as an animator, and I kind of always see myself as that, and so. And I think that's how I've been able to kind of also go in between. Like whenever the TV work kind of dries up, I always kind of go back to commercial. So like this year, I worked on a couple of things already, like before, working in Powerhouse. So.
It's good that you always have commercials to kind of fill the.
I don't always have it. I try to have it, but I mean, it just comes to me.
To like that.
There's so many studios in town.
Some people are like, oh my god, I have to get that one minimum wage job now.
Right.
In between, it's like, go for commercials.
Right.
Other freelance gigs.
Yeah.
Freelance.
Right.
Gigs,
Yeah.
Sure. I know we have to kind of wrap things up kind of soon because I know we've been going for a little over an hour.
Summary time.
So I know there was something. Well, before we get into the live thing that you wanted to do, I want to ask. We went through, we had a lot of really like good advice, advice that I actually have never heard on the show before, which is really good. So I'm gonna
keep it real.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. Like I'm gonna go back and like listen to this entire interview again because there are some really good key points where I was like, wow, that's great, and I've never heard that before. That's also great. I've never heard that before.
We should do a clip montage of like the best advice from various shows. Did you write that down?
Oh yeah,
that's a great idea.
This is also another thing. I've never been compelled to write notes.
Transcripts.
Yeah, man, you were really killing it. That's great. Yeah. But I want to say a few last things.
Sure.
A few little quick thingies. Number one, do you have any last minute advice just overall for like young people? A lot of like young, inspiring animators, people that want to be in the industry, watch and listen to the show. Do you have any advice for them? I
think if anything, they need to give me advice. I think because it's like it's true. I mean, it's the way that things are done today are so different. I mean, I started before YouTube was a thing. It's so different nowadays, and it's so much easier to just do things in a like non-expensive way. I mean, like 2 years ago, I even I mean, this is not even like a big thing, but I moved away from like Photoshop. I mean, I still use it, but my main drawing tool now is Clip Studio or Manga Studio, because that program is just like amazing. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's so good, and it's not even. It's cheap. It's like I just wait until they have a sale. It's like $100, like less. Wow. And and it's like better than Photoshop. So it's even stuff like that. Like nowadays, there's so many other. And Fire Alpaca is free. You can just get Fire Alpaca, just draw. Like it's crazy. Or Sai, for PC users.
Sai is amazing.
Yeah. Good advice. That's also.
So I think that's the thing that's changed so much. Like as long as you can get your hands on a fairly like inexpensive computer, which is, I mean, that's the cost right now. But like once you get past that threshold, like there's no limits. Like you can get the stuff for free without feeling like you're being like a pirate either. You know, like this is the thing that's also
program tablet and then putting up on like Instagram.
Right. Yeah, and then the ways to get stuff out is so different. I mean, you know.
You don't have to rely on film festivals like we had to.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing. I think my advice doesn't even apply anymore. You know. I mean, I think perseverance and tenacity and those are things that I think they're just like life, you know, advice. I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say is like industry. I don't know if it's industry related. I mean, I think maybe I used to think this way, but that's also changing. Like, you know, people in the industry like to think that we're like special because it's, you know, in the entertainment industry, you know. But it's like at the end of the day, it's a job. Like, you know, and like if you treat it as a job, you'll feel much better for it. Like it's not this. Well, yeah, but it's like a lot of the problems that you have. It's not because you're working in entertainment. It's just because you're an adult working. You know, like you're not. You know, like it's not.
Yeah, even if you're an accountant, it was like you'd run to the same.
Yeah, you're gonna have people you don't always like to work with. You're gonna have days that you don't like your job. You're gonna work on things you don't always like working on. You know, it's not because, and even your own projects too. You know, I mean that's why even my own comic. I mean, I move it, and it's a glacial speed, you know, mostly because and that's why I don't even consider myself like a web comic artist, because like those guys and gals like
twice a week.
I'm like, which I mean that's their gig, you know, that's how they made it, and that's awesome, you know. Like one of them, this friend, the acquaintance of mine, Brianne Drewhart, she does RPG, like like. She's a monster. Yeah, it's just amazing. Like her output is like ridiculous, you know.
Nice, man.
But I think even she like has. I think recently she's mentioned. I think she's like actually like working as a revisionist lately, just to have time.
Oh wow.
To like, you know, because if you're a board artist, like forget it, you know, like sometimes you kind of have to take it down a notch, you know, just to kind of have some peace of mind, you know, to do the stuff you like, you know.
That kind of leads into my next question. I didn't find a time to ask this during the interview, but you mentioned you had 2 kids and a wife as well. So
yes.
Like, as I know, we have a lot of younger viewers that listen, but we might have some somebody, you know, with a family as well listening. How do you find it balancing like working as an artist or in the animation industry and then the family?
It's hard. Well? That's all I gotta say.
Do you have any
I'm
advice?
Still figuring that out.
Oh yeah.
Like drink some chamomile tea. Like that's all I got. Like because
You did ask for some of that. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was joking, but it's true. Like that's something I really struggle with a lot because my kids are still young too, and I always look up to a lot of the directors, you know, in the industry who like even have more kids. I mean, like Brad Bird is like 5 kids. I'm like, how did he manage to be like, you know, the best and also have like a big family? I don't know, but you know, I think other directors. I think that's the thing. I think like Rich Moore also is. A lot of big time animation directors have a family, and I'm like, somehow they made it and they're okay. So I'm like, I think there's hope.
As far as we know.
So but you know,
from what we can see,
right? But I think I think that's kind of what's giving me hope. But I think it also means, you know. I think union work has a lot to do with it. Like keeping things union helps.
For sure.
Just because, you know, benefits and hours and, you know, knowing that you have. Yeah, and I think they're also introducing that too. Like there was a big thing lately to like try and get childcare. Yeah. Like there's a lot of things that I think even with all the talk of the union being weaker than it used to be, they're still strong. It's still better than not having a union altogether, you know.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
You know, there's still I mean, even though I said not to mythologize things, but there's still kind of an impetus to feel to get union work just because of that, you know.
That's just like necessary as workers in a business to something so we can have a counterbalance to just like them making money off of our work.
Of course, of course, yeah.
So let's see. I guess the last thing that we didn't ask that we usually ask is, do you have like a favorite show that you've worked on, or a favorite project that you've worked on?
I think like there's not a single one. I think 9 is still like a big thing because I still meet people that are fans that had come out of nowhere. Because like when the movie came out, we didn't like it did okay, but like we didn't really meet like fans as much, you know.
It was super underrated at the time, or underappreciated.
Right, but I still end up meeting like there's like one revisionist like in the last gig too. Like he said, oh yeah, he was like in 6th grade in society, and I was like, which kind of also shows my age, but I was just like, oh yeah. But it was just funny, you know. Yeah, but I mean, but on the motion side of things, Metamorphosis was definitely a big thing because that was like. I was like, wow, like it's.
Is there any place that people can watch?
I think if you just search, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And like Buck, they used to have it on their website, but I think they might have taken it down. Mm-hmm. But it won so many awards. I mean, that thing, and it's just a beautiful thing to watch.
Nice.
Yeah, on the motion side of things, and TV wise, it's I don't know. I still have to get there. We'll see how Kid Danger turns out. I haven't seen a lot of the animation, you know, but but I know that at least, you know, I'm proud of the episodes that I did, you know, with the kind of show they were making. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty happy about that. Hopefully it's definitely a different kind of combination of things of comedy and action that I don't think that has been enough of that kind of show out there. Yeah, of like. Sitcom, but with a lot of action in between. So we'll see how it turns out. Cool. Yeah,
I'm excited to see it. Yeah. So, do you guys have any other, or anybody else have anything else to add before we wrap things up and try this live thing yet you want to try out?
Yeah, we have a new segment. We're gonna go live in a moment, and we're gonna try to do this often.
Okay,
with
sure.
You guys. So you guys can ask them questions.
If you watch this on YouTube, you've missed it.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
If you're watching this on YouTube, it's about a week too late.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, we're just going to do like 10 minutes. We're going to do like a live YouTube thing, or maybe 5 minutes and just...
No, we can do it, yeah. I have time.
If we get any people watching, and maybe they'll ask some questions.
Sure.
So, yeah, it was awesome having you on the show.
Thank you.
Some really good advice. And what Brian said really makes me want to go back and like listen to this again and then do like a best advice segment for like aspiring animators and people like that, because there were some really good gems in there for sure.
Okay.
You want to plug any of your stuff?
Okay.
Oh, wait.
I got what you said. Wow, that was weird.
Sorry.
Brian's words of wisdom. I'm sorry. That was it.
All right.
Do I have any this time?
That's something we do
sometimes.
sometimes.
Was that what you were doing? He literally just went like this. He was like...
You guys playing charades behind our back. I wasn't even looking.
Right. I'm good.
Yeah, I guess if I have any words of wisdom to say about like just work's a job and treat it as such, it's fine, because I agree with you. Like, the happiest productions I've ever worked on were productions I worked on with friends, people I know. And it's like I didn't care what we were making.
Right. That's so secondary at times.
If we were making the most garbage show ever, that was more fun.
Right.
Then every week we come and it's like, what bullshit are we gonna work on now? Check this shit out.
I love it.
If a show goes smoothly and it's a great show, it's just kind of like, whatever.
We gotta get some people from like Dora the Explorer or some
some
shows like that where it's like really
Did we have somebody from Lunatics Unleashed at some point?
Oh, that was Dickman.
That was Dickman. Okay, I was like, oh my god.
I've heard of that show.
Well, Reggie, did you want to like plug your website where people can check
Sure,
out
yeah.
stuff
Studio-catch.com or -catch.com. That's where I put everything, and I should take some things out actually. I have too much stuff, but I also like to leave it there so people can see, you know, kind of the breadth of what I can do or what I've done in the past too. Sure. You can see my animation reel there. My short films are also posted there.
Nice.
I post a few tests there too.
Oh, cool! You even have tests.
I have tests. Yeah, I have some tests there. Then I have, some stuff is a little outdated, like my concept art portfolio, but you know,
Don't worry.
but it's still. I mean, I think it's still representative of kind of the stuff I do. I mean,
Studio-catch.
Yes.
Cool.
But I also have, like, you can find me on Twitter, on twitter.com/studiocatch. That's all together.
And then Instagram.
Instagram also, the same thing. Yeah, I try to keep the handle the same so it's easier to find me across social media.
Thank you.
Awesome,
yes.
Dude, Reggie, it was awesome having you on. I
thank
cannot
you.
wait to go back, listen to this again, and pick out a few little gems here, because there's some 2-3 minute segments that people are gonna be, oh my god, that's changed my life. Those three words changed my life. So
I hope so.
So thanks for being on. Does anybody else have anything else to add?
No, I'm good.
To go? Reggie, you were great, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. We'll see everybody next time in the ass.
Bye.
See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy, guys. Peace.
Okay.
Cool. That was awesome.